Welcome to the podcast Sustainability, teaching about sustainable cities and communities in a classroom. This episode is a supplemental teacher guide for the Sustainability Kids episode on how to make your own podcast. In this episode, we will give you the necessary background information on how to start a podcast project with your students. We will equip you with a list of the important do's and don'ts for making a podcast with children. On top of that, we will give you some general tips and advice to ensure that this podcast project will be successful. Let's start with the do's. Guide and supervise your students. Don't dictate. Before you start, think of the format of your podcast. Do you want to keep them short, giving the children more independence and keeping the project more manageable? Or do you want to make them longer and teach the kids how to link the segments smoothly? Get inspiration from the children themselves. What do they like to talk about and listen to? It could be interviews, audio drama production, news, school-based, national or international, jokes, riddles, and so on. There are no boundaries. Just let them be creative. Are there talented students who might like to sing or recite poetry? Keep it simple. When it comes to the technical side, you could start with recording straight into the computer using Audacity or other free-to-download software. Also, there's an incredible app called Anchor. It's very easy to work with and has multiple explanatory audio files that help you with using the app, as well as give you additional tips on how to start your own podcast. Feel free to download this app and explore it before you introduce it to your students. Further down the road, think about investing in additional equipment, a microphone or a digital recording device. Stress the importance of practice and vocal expression. It's important to keep working on it if the children want to produce a good podcast. Structure the production of the podcasts so that the children fully understand and have a go at all the stages. Start with the idea, then go on to development, research and scripting. After that, the sound recording and sound editing. If you're not confident about these two final stages, there's plenty online tutorials to learn from. Also take a look online for loads of license-free jingles and sound effects, the children's favorite. One possible platform for that is linked in the episode description on our website. Anchor also has some music that can be used for free. Include children of all abilities. Each and every child brings a different perspective and can contribute to the creation of a podcast. Finally, reward the children by either playing the completed podcast in assembly or producing CDs which they could take home with them to play to their families. Also put them on our website so that our team and schools all over the world can get inspiration and start their own podcast about sustainable cities and communities. Now, let's talk about the don'ts. Don't suggest themes which your children cannot identify with or aren't interested in. However, this project is based on the broad topic of sustainable cities and communities. So we would suggest for you to let your students choose which subtopics they are interested in the most. That could, for example, be transportation, safe and affordable housing, or inclusive green and public spaces. Then they still have plenty of freedom on choosing an aspect they can connect with and that sparks their interest. Don't write for the children. You can correct their grammar or spelling or type up what they'd written by hand. But it has to be their own text with only a few additional suggestions from you. That could, for example, be things like lengthen your introduction, rethink your ending, or add some humor. Don't agree to include pop music. For example, from the charts or the radio. You will get a lot of those requests, and it takes forever to make the children understand about royalties. It's important that they understand what copyright means and why they are only allowed to include copyright-free music. So take your time and explain it to them. To round off with, some general tips and advice for all teachers who are starting a podcast project in their classroom. Expose the children to various other podcast formats before starting their own podcast project. Take it slow. Give kids plenty of room to learn and experiment. Everybody can participate. If children are, for example, insecure to record their voice, let them practice first. Have them work on the scripts, the background music, or the cutting. There are so many jobs to fulfill. In the scope of this project, you can also practice intonation and pronunciation, speed in reading and speaking, as well as listening skills with your students. Implement little exercises in the project. These are important skills for life, and the students will profit from being expert in this field. And to end with, just do it. Children learn so much through play and enjoyment. That's all for now. We hope that after listening to this quick guide, you are well prepared to start your very own podcast with the students in your classroom. Have fun! We promise this is going to be a very enjoyable and engaging project. You listened to episode 5 of the podcast is Teachability, teaching about sustainable cities and communities. Until next time, and as always, don't forget to be a sustainable citizen.